Welcome to the Face to Face podcast, your go to resource for living a life of vitality, wholeness, and authenticity. I am one of your hosts, Melinda Wilson.
And I'm your other host, Kathy Little. Join us as we explore deeper connection, lasting freedom, and meaningful relationships with God, others, and your true self. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is actually dropping Christmas week, so we just want to especially wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a happy 2026 coming up. We actually just finished interviewing somebody that just felt like this would be a great wrap up for the end of the year with Jenna Riemersma.
Yes, Jenna Riemersma. And if you look on the spelling, you might have like, how do we pronounce that?
Yes,
But yes,
it's a little tricky.
Riemersma, but she is a best-selling author, speaker, licensed professional counselor, and she specializes in internal family systems, IFS. And we had a most profoundly beautiful conversation. And Kathy, I'm so glad you were amenable to, which of course you would be, but really having her lead us in a group. You'll see it. It's not we just did this right now. We literally just hung up with her. We're doing this bumper. I know it's like a week later, but she led us through some parts work and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to experience that as well.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a little bit of a Christmas present for you guys because we
That's
do.
true. It's good timing for that.
Yeah. But before we share that interview, Kathy, we're so excited to continue to talk about this.
Yeah, so good. And I mentioned to her some of the things that she was talking about. We're implementing and teaching inside the Immanuel Institute because we all have parts of our heart that feel differently about different things, and some of them get mad at each other. And so it was really reaffirming and reassuring just the approach for coming toward those parts. But speaking of the Immanuel Institute, level 1 is still open for enrollment, and it will be until I believe the 11th of January. We're starting level 1 on the 15th of January. It's going to be 7 weeks. And we'd love to have you join us. Just put your toe in the water to learn more about what this Immanuel approach stuff is about. This is for your whole life. This is like things that impact you in your day to day. You don't even have to go on to become a practitioner or be certified or anything like that. But getting the basics of this interactive connection with Jesus is a game changer for your life in general. It'll change your relationships. It'll change your internal world. It's going to give you a deeper connection with Jesus in a way that's really meaningful and life-changing. So please go to our website, immanuelinstitute.com. Click on courses and you'll see, actually, there's a start here button now on our website. So you go to immanuelinstitute.com and tap on start here and it'll take you right to level 1. And we'd love to have you join us. It's very accessible. Come join us.
Don't take our word for it. There's going to be some testimonies coming out, but we hear all the time, you guys, of how transformative this is. And when Kathy says life-changing, or I say life-changing, it's not the brand new toothpaste that whitens your teeth. It really is life-changing because people are constantly saying, I didn't know I could connect with Jesus like this. And I didn't know the brain science could be so simple. And I didn't know that I could also share this with others and see them come into transformation because they're encountering Jesus in such a simple but healing way. And we'd love to have you join us. And we're loving getting to expanding our face-to-face family and community. And if you're curious at all, sign up. Like if there's something that's in you, just do it.
Just do it.
We're really also grateful to have Jenna Riemersma, but also just to say again, thank you for listening. And because it's coming around Christmas, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Yes.
And now on to our guest. I've waited 4 months for this interview and I would love to do like a multi-part series. So maybe I'll have to circle back. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you because I have gained so much and benefited from, I'm on Insight Timer and your meditations on Insight Timer have been remarkably healing. And just your voice, you have this kindness and compassion that I feel welcomes all the parts feel welcome, at least for me. And I've seen from comments on Insight Timer that other people feel the same. And I want to maybe warm you up to the possibility if there's time. And I put that in the email of you maybe leading a short kind of parts, connecting with parts, little meditation at the end. And that would be so unique to our podcast. And people then get an opportunity to figure, to find out what the heck are they talking about. And we have talked about parts before, but not a huge focus. I love talking about parts, but we're so glad to have you, Jenna. And I know that you are a best-selling author and a licensed professional counselor, really specializing in IFS, internal family systems, and trauma and spirituality. And I'm just reading now your bio because I was reading it before and I've listened to some of your podcasts, but you're Harvard trained expert, which is curious, therapist. And your new book is coming out. You have Altogether You and Altogether Us. Is that correct?
Altogether Us has just been renamed and re-released, and it is now called, much more appropriately, IFS Integration. And so that describes that second book a little bit more accurately. So that is now out in the world under a new title. And then I have my 3-step shorthand tool for the IFS model called Move Toward that is coming out in April.
So
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
How do you want to start, Jenna? Like, or maybe you're asking me to help you start, but I know you're great at podcast interviews because I've heard you, and we do tend to be conversational in nature. But just to share with our listeners some of your background, and then how on earth did you end up as a therapist, and tell us about parts and why that should be normalized, maybe.
Yeah. So give us the 101.
Yeah, yeah.
Help us out. Help us out here.
I love it. I would be glad to. So I started out in my professional life as a public policy individual, worked on Capitol Hill, and then decided to stay home when we had our kids and did that for many years. And then really felt called to impact the world and help people who were suffering. And so that led me into counseling. And then I discovered internal family systems, and it completely rocked my world because it really gave me a lens through which I could view spirituality and growth and healing in a way that made it concrete and applicable. And that for me was such a game changer. So I came to love this thing called parts work and internal family systems, or IFS is what we call it. And it has really informed my whole personal and professional life ever since I encountered it.
Would you mind talking about how, firstly, it impacted you?
Absolutely. One of the gifts of IFS is that in order to be skillful in bringing it to our clients, it really requires that we use it internally ourselves. And that's not the case with all models of therapy, and they're all wonderful in their different rights. And I'm trained in a whole lot of them because I love to learn, and I love to have lots of tools to be able to bring to help my clients. But IFS really does require that in order to be able to bring what we call in IFS our core authentic self energy, or what people in faith communities might call that authentic image of God essence, the imago Dei inside of us, we have to practice the experience of welcoming all of our parts so that that imago Dei really can come forward. And that is just a tremendous gift of the model. So I have been doing my own IFS work for many, many years, and I plan to continue that for forever, because we never arrive. We never are completely whole and perfect this side of the pearly gates. And so it's just such a joy for me to always be just sort of throughout the course of a general day working with my parts, and then doing that more formally in a personal setting. It's been really a gift in my life.
Can you, excuse me, can you share with us what that might look like for you? Obviously, without getting too personal, but I know what you're talking about because I do it all the time too, but I know that a lot of people wouldn't have any kind of frame of reference for what you're talking about. So, however, it might explain best to our listeners, either talking about the model first, more about firefighter and protector and all of that, and sort of giving a framework for it, and then how do we do this? What does it look like to apply that to our life?
Absolutely. IFS basically helps us to understand that we all have an authentic self, or again, in faith language, we might refer to that as the image of God that is inside of all of us, inside of every human being, regardless of who we are, where we are, what we've done, what's been done to us. It is always present. It is undamaged, unbroken, and it is designed to lead us. We're designed to be led by that imago Dei in the side of us. And in addition to that imago Dei, that essential self is what IFS calls it, we all have many different good parts. There are many different parts of all of us. And those different parts, with their positive qualities and attributes, make up our unique personalities. So, for example, I'm a 1 on the Enneagram. I have very organized parts. Someone else might have humorous parts. Another person might have mathematical parts. We all have many different parts that are good, that make up our unique personalities. And when difficult things happen in the world, in clinical language, we refer to that as trauma. In faith-based language, we refer to that as sin, things not being the way that they should be, things missing the mark, that sort of Greek hamartia. It burdens our parts. Our parts get literally covered over with this burden of trauma or sin, just depending on what language we want to use. And they're still there. Their positive essence is still there underneath that burden, but they no longer have access to it. It's like somebody threw a blanket over that positive part. And what happens when our parts become burdened is we develop these different burdened parts in our system. We have the vulnerable parts of us that carry those vulnerable feelings like, I'm not good enough, I'm all alone, nobody would really want me, I'm powerless, the world isn't safe, those types of beliefs and feelings. And then we have 2 types of protective parts that become burdened, trying to protect us from never feeling those feelings. We have proactive protectors called managers. They try to manage our lives proactively so that we never feel those vulnerable feelings of the exiled parts of us. And then we have reactive protectors who jump in to try to put the flames of the exile pain out when it gets activated. And we call those, somewhat comically, firefighters, because they try to put out the painful flames of the exiles when the exiles are triggered. And that may all sound very confusing, but really we can think of it very simply because we just naturally speak this way. We say, there's a part of me that wants to go to the party on Friday and see everybody and catch up. But another part of me is so exhausted. I've had a long week at work, and this part of me just wants to put on my sweats and binge watch Netflix. And those 2 parts of us are at war with each other. They each want something completely separate. And we just naturally speak that way. So, an example that I give in my most recent book, which is called Move Toward, it's my shorthand tool for the IFS model. An example that I give in my own system is I have some manager parts. They're proactive, that are prone to overworking. And I come by those naturally. I come from a long family lineage of very, very hard workers, of specifically women who work so hard that it borders on compulsive overworking. And I certainly inherited that. I come by that honestly. And then I have reactive firefighters that want to push back against all the exhaustion and overwhelm of that overworking. And my firefighters just want to give up and move to the beach. Now, I did, in fairness, just move to the beach, but it was not firefighter-led activity. Those parts of me are like, oh, just forget it. Just throw in the towel. Don't keep working so hard. Just take a nap. Just quit everything. And those are two parts of me trying to help me in two totally opposite ways. And they are in burdened roles. And so, one of the gifts for me in this work is to get into relationship with those parts of myself rather than trying to get in control of them, which is what we typically try to do, and really begin to form a spirit-led and imago Dei-led relationship with these parts of myself so that they can help transform to release their burdens and be restored to their natural positive qualities.
That is so good. I love it's such practical language, but it really does demonstrate what they do. And the managers and the firefighters. And I mean, I have experienced that war 100 million times inside of me. So I really appreciate the language for that and such a great explanation of what their jobs are, because I think those are the parts of us that frustrate people. Like I don't like that part of me. I don't like the part that's managing or the part that's putting out the like there's behaviors that are demonstrated by those two parts that we may not like. So the tendency might be to push them away, push them down, not listen to them, push them further away into exile. But just by the title of your new book, you're talking about how there's benefit in moving towards. So keep going. I don't know, Melinda may have had a question there, but I just wanted to have a little commentary on what I was hearing because it's so good.
No, I'm glad. I have a million questions. I'm telling you, Jenna, I'm like, can I just sit down and talk to you all day? Because I'm telling you, parts is my passion. I'm serious. Like I love it and I'm passionate about it. I've got a little sticker on my mirror that says all parts welcome. And I also have heard the phrase no bad parts. I think that might be Richard Schwartz. And I actually had a conversation, Jenna, last week with a friend who I was talking to about parts. And she's like, yeah, I've heard that no bad part. She's like, what about a pedophile or a sex trafficker? Or, you could think of a vile offender. And so
Yes.
how do I kind of know how I answered her. I'd love to hear your response of what
Yes.
about those parts of us that seem vile, seem full of shame and do bad things, to define bad, or we
Yes.
look at something blatant and go, how is the part of that guy that raped that child? And I hate to be so graphic, but I know that there's going to be questions like this of
Yes.
what do we do then with those parts of us that we feel are terrible and that we don't want driving the bus, so to speak? What
That's
about
right.
those parts?
That's right. Melinda, you make a really important part, and you're correct. This model, in addition to that phrase, is attributed to Dr. Richard Schwartz, who developed the internal family systems approach about 40 years ago. And it's now become a phenomenally popular model of healing. And in fact, of really many people would say of spiritual growth as well. And in so many ways, those two go hand in hand. And this is probably one of the most important points, the one that you're touching on here, which is all parts welcome does not mean all behaviors welcome. This is critical because the fact that we recognize that all parts of us are good, even if they've gotten trapped underneath the burden of unhelpful or painful feelings and behaviors. That doesn't mean that the burdened feeling or behavior that they're carrying is good. It's not. In fact, by definition, the burden is not the way that things should be. Mm. And so, what I like to help people envision, and I don't know, will we have video coverage of this podcast or is it just audio?
Yes. It'll be on YouTube.
Okay, because I like to illustrate this with props, sometimes it makes more sense. So if we used this squishy heart here to represent who I truly am, who you truly are, who every human on the planet truly is, this is the imago Dei, or the self inside of us. And for anyone who may have been sort of accustomed to a faith environment where the word self is a bad word, where it connotes fleshly or sinful, I just want to mention and name that we're we're translating this language, self in IFS actually refers to that divine essence of who you truly are. It is the kind of almost the opposite of how many folks in faith communities interpret the word self. So we do a little bit of just translating between the language here. So this self, which is always calm, clear-minded, courageous, compassionate, curious, connected, that is always moving toward all parts of us with curiosity and compassion, then it sees these different parts of ourselves. I only have two hands, so I can only hold up one self and one part. But in reality, we all have one self and multiple different parts. But let's say this is a playful part that when we're growing up plays with Legos, makes a mess on the floor, and gets screamed at by a caregiver. You're so messy. Why do you always have to make such a mess? What's the matter with you? Why are you always ruining everything? This playful, joyful, spontaneous part of the person, and I'm going to represent this by putting a little blanket over the top of it, it can get burdened from traumatic experiences with this cover. It gets covered over. Now it's carrying a burden of shame. This part is still a good part. It's playful, it's spontaneous, but we don't have access to the playfulness, the spontaneity, because it's covered up by this burden that it's carrying, shame. And what happens if we don't have support in navigating this? Let's say the caregiver comes back later and says, honey, I'm so sorry that I yelled. That is mommy's, that was my bad. You didn't do anything wrong. Please forgive me. And makes a repair. If we don't have some sort of support so that our parts don't get burdened, what happens is other parts go, oh no, this shame, when that gets triggered, is intolerable. And one of the many ways, and there are many, that parts can, specifically in this case, it's going to usually be a firefighter that gets stuck in a reactive role, trying to put out the flames of the shame by acting out sexually. And what I will say, and because my area of clinical expertise happens to be betrayal trauma and compulsive sexual behavior, this is something that I work with all the time. And it's the same idea. And what we find is that usually this naturally positive part of the individual, it's often the part that is designed to connect in healthy intimacy with their beloved. It gets covered over with this burden of sexual compulsivity. And it may be through masturbation or pornography, or it may escalate into offending behavior or into a whole variety of things. Notice the distinction. The compulsive sexual behavior is the burden. It is not a good thing. It is not doing good things. It is having terrible consequences. The part underneath it is still a good part. So when we say all parts are good and all parts are welcome, we are not saying the burdens are good or welcome. What we are saying is the same thing that Jesus said to Gideon when he showed up in the wine press, which is, greetings, mighty warrior. You may be covered over with fear and hiding and all kind of stuff that's not really who you are, but I actually see who you are through that. And what all parts welcome, and establishing this curiosity and this move toward energy from the God image inside of us, it allows these parts to get into relationship with the divine within us, which helps them to unburden. Very much like the scripture that says, come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden and burdened, and I will give you rest from that burden. I will transform you back into what you truly are, that part of you that's designed to connect in healthy intimacy with your beloved. So it is not about saying that the burden behavior or feeling is good or okay. It is 100% not. What it is about is a much more effective way to enact transformation and healing is through relationship, self to part relationship rather than control. And when we try to get in control, what we actually have, and Kathy made a beautiful point here, what usually happens when we have a part of us that's stuck under a burdened behavior or feeling is another part of us that, and I don't have enough hands to demonstrate this. I'll put my hand.
Jenna, if you were AI generated, you'd have several hands and like
I
eight
would.
fingers. So we know this is not AI.
This is not AI. I only have two hands. We get a second part that's usually a manager, and it gets in a burdened role of being a critic, our inner critic. And that's the part that doesn't like the behavior, that's trying to get the behavior to stop. And I don't care if this behavior is looking at pornography or eating Oreos or buying too many shoes or people pleasing or control. It really is irrelevant. What we have is two burdened parts that are at war with each other. And an interesting thing about that burdened inner critic that I know because I've worked with them so much, and I've worked with my own inner critic, is that underneath the burden of the critic, and keep in mind, the critic is trying to help us not do the bad thing because the bad thing is hurting us and hurting people that we love. But underneath it usually is a part that is designed to be our cheerleader, our encourager, the exact opposite. And what happens is that if we just get into a battle of the parts, then we just have parts at war with each other. And you and I and all of our listeners probably know what happens when we get in a parts battle. We have one part of us that's burdened with compulsive sugar eating. We have another part of us that's burdened criticizing the compulsive sugar eating and trying to get it locked in the basement. And the criticizing part says, that's it. We're only going to eat kale for the next year. And that works for, I don't know, like an hour. And then the sugar eating part's like, I'll show you, and props up and eats the entire package of cookies. And then the critic doubles down, and then the sugar eating doubles down. And then we have the however many billion-dollar diet industry profiting off of what is really a battle of the parts. So when we move against parts of ourselves that we don't like, it makes our suffering worse. And the solution that is wildly counterintuitive, but very consistent with scripture, is to move toward them with curiosity and compassion from the divine within us and help them to transform and be restored to their naturally positive state. It is a message of deep and profound compassion and transformation through relationship, not through control, because what we know is that change through control doesn't work.
Yeah, that actually sounds a lot like a lot of the people that we're connected with in the Immanuel approach arena with the brain science people, Life Model Works, all talking about how we are designed for that relational connection. And even with people to people, and how we heal in community, we heal in that space of relationship and having the love and support and sharing capacity, connecting and attaching with Jesus in those painful places as well, moving into that space of connection. So it's interesting that that's actually true with the parts, because they do come to war with each other. And it is that we want to cast this out or rebuke this, And, I've been around enough to see that it's not usually a demonic thing. It's a parts battle. And so it's really, I love the illustration, and we'll have to make sure everybody knows in the bumper up front, they need to watch this on YouTube because to see
especially
you
when Jenna pulls out her third hand
Yeah,
that
there
she
you
was
go.
trying to find. So you see this little puppet hand come up. You could, I don't know, I'm having visions of all sorts of
You should
possibilities.
have little
for
things
you.
on sticks.
That's right.
Like
That's
someone
right.
under your desk that could be you're hiring as like a puppet person, just like, oh, there's my fifth hand. But
Perfect. Why didn't I think of that?
you know what? You can hire me for free to be your
Green
puppet,
screen.
your puppet consultant.
It's amazing.
And I am a 7, so there's got to be some levity. But Jenna, I mean, going along with what Kathy just said, and because we teach the Immanuel approach and we talk about parts and introducing those in a gentle way. And I end up doing a little bit of IFS, not naming the parts because I don't know if that's always
Yeah.
super necessary. But can you give us a little bit of maybe framework or insight in how to move toward with compassion? Because I know that for
Mhm.
many years I just had so much self-hatred and I didn't realize until I did parts work that it's like Kathy said, it's not you don't cast out the spirit of self-hatred. It was actually me being resentful toward or hating parts of myself for making these decisions or not doing what I really wanted to do or and then learning to love those parts. But that is such a struggle for many, many people. And so Jenna, would you help us maybe give us, I don't know if I would say tips, but maybe some help on how to move toward, which I love that language because it's not really confrontational. I see it as a
Right.
slow moving toward with that curiosity and compassion. But if people have never done that and they feel either afraid of those parts, resentful toward those parts, shameful toward those parts, and the last thing they want to do is move
Mhm.
toward with compassion, help
Yeah.
us give us a little bit of maybe on ramp into being able to move toward those parts that we don't like very much with compassion.
Absolutely. You make such an important point, Melinda, because very often this suggestion that we welcome parts of ourselves that are stuck feeling or doing painful, destructive, or frightening things is the most counterintuitive suggestion that we can have. And for many of us, it brings up some resistance. And one of the beautiful pieces of IFS is that it teaches us that we always start with the resistance. We always start with the concerns. We don't bully any parts of ourselves. And so when we ask the question, what comes up in me when I think about welcoming this part of myself that feels shame or that eats all the cookies? And the first thing that we notice is usually resistance or a part of us that hates the part that we're trying to welcome. Then what we want to do is stay with that concern, with the resistance, with the hatred, with the distraction. That's another common thing. We might have parts that jump in distracting us with lots of different thoughts. We can't stay focused, or parts that just go blank, that completely shut us down and we have no connection to our body, to our emotion, to our thoughts. We stay with the resistance and get curious about it. And we ask these parts of ourselves that are distracting or numbing or afraid, what are you afraid would happen if I welcomed my shame? What are you concerned would happen if I moved toward the part of me that's eating all the cookies? And hear what the concerns are, because those concerns are always valid. And they usually fall in some genre of, then I'm afraid that part of you will take over and you'll weigh 487 million pounds and you'll never get off the couch.
Mm.
Or I'm afraid that if you focus on the shame or the grief or the sadness, it will overwhelm you. You will never stop crying and you'll lose it. Or I'm afraid if you slow down and pay attention inside, there's going to be some scary stuff in there that you really don't want to know about or have to deal with. Or, and this can be common in some of our faith communities, many faith communities do a wonderful job of making all parts welcome. And sometimes in faith communities, we get the message that there are certain parts of us that are not welcome.
Mm-hmm.
These are usually parts that carry anger, fear, questions, intellectual questions about faith issues,
Right.
parts that feel unworthy or shame. There are certain types of parts that in some faith contexts are determined to be sinful and bad. And if you are feeling those feelings or thinking those thoughts, you're challenging God. You're not being, quote, a good Christian. And that comes from what I like to call a burdened spiritualizer part, which is, notice that I would argue not only just the image of God inside of us, but actually the essence of all parts of us reflect the divine, that all of who we are reflects that divine image inside of us. But most specifically, we connect to the greater divine through this God image at our core, the self, as IFS would call it. And this self energy is that sort of authentic connection to the divine. And it's when we're connected to it, it's like that mountaintop feeling where we can just relax, like there's no condemnation. It really embodies that sense of now there is no condemnation. Like we just know that we are completely seen, completely known, and completely loved. There is no need to put on a fig leaf. Spiritualizer parts of us are parts of us that are trying to get us to do it right, to do the God thing right or the spiritual thing right, but they're burdened parts, right? And they're stuck in this unhelpful role of using God language, God behavior, God activities to try to get us to do it right, to get us over there closer to the image of God, to get us to shape up, act right, do it right, so that we don't do it wrong and get in trouble with the big guy. And they're really well-intentioned parts, and they have a lot of black and white thinking, a lot of shaming energy, and a lot of should and shouldn't that is associated with good people should feel this, they shouldn't feel that, they should do this, they shouldn't do that. If you're pleasing to God, you should feel joy and joy in all your tribulations, and you shouldn't feel fear. Notice that's very different than this God image sense, which is, exactly how I am is welcome here. And so these spiritualizer parts are burdened. They're stuck in an unhelpful role, trying very hard to help us to do it right. But the problem is, it's very important to them to be able to separate right, wrong, good, bad, sin, not sin. And so that legalistic thinking puts a lot of parts of us that feel uncomfortable to the spiritualizer parts in the timeout box. And the problem is that we can't put parts of ourselves in the timeout box. And a lot of those feelings are actually hardwired by God into our nervous system because they carry important messages for us. We have to be able to welcome and listen to our fear, our loneliness, our shame, our anger, because every one of those is designed to carry a powerful message for us. Our loneliness tells us that our relational connections are not being met in the way that is life-giving. Our fear tells us we don't feel safe emotionally, physically, sexually, spiritually. Our anger often tells us we either feel powerless or we're having a boundary violated. Our shame tells us that somewhere, usually in our early attachment experiences, we were not met with the unconditional positive regard that we were designed to be met with. And so we have got to listen to those parts of ourselves that our spiritualizer wants to put in the timeout box in order to be whole, in order to be able to hear what God is actually hardwired into us. And so that's a sort of a lengthy answer to the first part of your question, which is, what do we do when we feel resistance to welcoming parts? Is we stay with the resistance. And if they're coming from that spiritualizer energy, then we welcome and move toward the spiritualizer. And I have a 3-step, really quick kind of approach that helps us to move toward any part of ourselves with curiosity and compassion that is in this new book that I'm releasing called Move Toward, that I can walk you through right now if you'd like, because that's the goal.
Yes, please.
That'd be amazing.
Is to be able to welcome any and all parts of ourselves. And I just want to make a brief caveat. When we're talking about moving toward, we're talking about moving toward our own parts with curiosity and compassion. If we're in relationship with a partner, with a spouse, with a boss, with a group or an organization that is abusive, boundary violating, unsafe, traumatizing in any way, I talk in the book about how we first move toward our own systems in order to wisely know how to turn toward the systems of other people when they are toxic and dangerous. So what we're not saying is just move toward the part of your spouse who's betraying you and unrepentant because it's a good part stuck in a bad role. No. We're talking about moving toward the difficult parts of our own selves to gain the leadership of that imago Dei that is wise and boundaried and clear-minded before we turn toward the dangerous, unsafe, or betraying parts of other people. So that's just an important caveat. We're talking about our own systems here, our own inner world. Yeah. So if you'd like, I can kind of walk us through a little like a prayerful experience of moving toward.
Yes,
that would feel helpful.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Beautiful. So if you'd like to join me in whatever way feels centered and prayerful and meditative for you, you're welcome to invite the divine, the Holy Spirit, whatever sort of divine energy feels right for you to come and be present in this moment. Maybe taking a moment just to deepen your breath. Notice your body. And soften your gaze or even close your eyes to facilitate the transition from focusing your energy to the world outside of you and begin to bring your attention to what's happening inside of you. And taking just a moment to think of a part of you, a part of yourself that's gotten stuck in a behavior, doing something that you don't like. So maybe it's a part of you that spiritualizes, that wants to control other people, that's people pleasing, that doesn't use your voice. Maybe it's a part that wants to eat all the sugar or drink all the wine or buy all the shoes or look at the porn, or that thinks about ending it all, or that dissociates or gets distracted. And when you have this part of you in mind, we'll call it the target part. It'll be the focus of our attention. Take a moment and just notice. This is step one. Notice how you become aware of it when this part of you gets activated. How do you notice it? So it may show up in particular thoughts running through your mind, or maybe an emotion or a behavioral impulse in your body. Maybe you get an image of this part of you in your mind's eye. However you notice when this part of you is active, see if you can extend a gentle invitation to this part of you to come and be in relationship with you for just a moment. And you're not saying that what it's doing or feeling is good or okay or all right. But you're just wanting to get into a relationship with it for a moment to understand it better. See if you can help. And take a moment to just welcome any parts of you that don't like this target part, that don't like what it's doing, what it's feeling, that have concerns about it, that want it to stop, that are afraid of it. Taking just a moment to honor all of those concerns. They're all valid in their own right. Just appreciating the parts of you that have those worries and concerns. And see if they'd be willing either to go somewhere that would feel more comfortable for them for just a moment or two, or to take a seat of honor next to you and keep an eye on things. but allow you in your calm, clear-minded, compassionate, courageous, connected self-energy to be with this part, the target part, with a little curiosity and compassion. And if you can start to notice just a little bit of curiosity or compassion toward the target part, see if you can extend that curiosity to it. Maybe send a little breath of kindness or compassion to it. See if it can receive that from you. And if you've been able to find a little open-heartedness, a little bit of that curiosity toward the target part, then you can just ask this part of you, what do you want me to know about you? That's step 2. What do you want me to know? And just wait and see if anything comes to mind. Don't try to figure it out. What do you want me to know? Do you have a message for me? You might ask this part of you, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't take me over and do this thing? And if you get a sense that maybe you'd be in danger, or be rejected, or be alone, or have a bad thing happen, then that tells you how this part of you is trying to protect you. It may not actually be protecting you, but that's its positive intent. And you may want to ask this part of you, how long have you been trying to help me in this way? And again, don't try to figure it out. Just notice if any early memories or an age come to mind. And if you get a sense of an earlier age or an earlier time in your life when this part of you may have had to take on this difficult role, maybe extending a little compassion to it for having to be stuck in this job for that length of time. And you may want to ask it, if it didn't have to worry about this negative thing happening to you and it didn't have to do this job, what would it rather do for you instead? You may get a sense that it would rather be doing something quite different, but it maybe doesn't think that's possible. And so there's a variety of questions that we can ask this part in terms of what it wants us to know about itself. But when we feel like we've gotten some information for now, we can finish with our third step, which is to ask this target part, what do you need from me? Not from other people, not from the world, but what do you need from me to feel a little less activated, a little more comforted? And sometimes we get a sense that these parts just need something internally in our mind's eye. They may just need a hug or a nap. They may be exhausted. Or maybe they need something in our outer world. They may need us to ask for help or set a boundary. But whatever we're aware of, If you get a sense of something, see if you can offer that or set an intention to offer it. And notice how this part of you is doing now. Now that it's had just a few moments with you, with your kind, compassionate, clear minded, courageous, God image, authentic self. And knowing that you can come back to this at any time, maybe offering a little gratitude to this part for being with you today. If it did share with you, appreciation for that. If you didn't get a sense, that's fine as well. Sometimes it takes a little bit to develop trust. And then when you feel ready to gently shift your awareness back outside, you're welcome to deepen your breath, maybe lift your gaze, and come back into awareness of the space around you. And if you did have a chance to connect with a part of yourself in that meditation, I often encourage people to journal anything that came up. It can get fuzzy pretty quickly because we're moving between areas of the brain. And it's very helpful to jot a little note, especially if we've made a commitment to this part to do something to help it so it doesn't have to take us over quite so intensively. And so that's the move toward approach. Just 3 simple steps. Notice this part with an open heart. Ask what it wants us to know and ask what it needs to feel a little more comforted. So we're really establishing this secure attachment relationship between this part and the image of God inside of us. So yeah, and let me just offer, if it feels comfortable, Kathy or Melinda, if you want to reflect on that experience. Some people are able to connect with a part, some people aren't. Either way is totally fine. What was that like for you?
Melinda, you want to go first?
Yeah, no, I knew you were going to say that. I have such deep appreciation for this model and for you, Jenna, because for years, like I shared, I had so much self-hatred and realizing that it wasn't something that I needed prayed away, but to move toward. And so I'm able at this point, because I've done this so much, and I have a spiritual director who is also experienced in IFS and who leads me in who's led me in several sessions, and I've had really pretty tremendous, I say breakthrough, and that word is overused, but I would say insight, revelation, when it's just done with compassion and curiosity. And it reminds me of a soft answer turns away wrath. It's somewhere in
Mm,
scripture, Psalms or Proverbs. And I
mm,
feel like toward myself, when I stop and turn toward myself in compassion. And so just now, without going into too much detail, because I don't, sometimes I have done that in the past and then I betray myself and kind of self-abandon. And I'm like,
yes.
oh my, they're like, why'd you tell
Yes.
everybody? Now it's just you and me and Kathy right now. So we haven't released this yet. Everything could be edited, but it's a part that I often return to that really just needs a younger part. And it was interesting when you said, is there an age? Because there was one age that I started out with, and then you said, is there I think you said, is there another age or a different, you see a vision or maybe a memory? And it went even younger, which I found fascinating. And for
Yes.
me, it was just attention and love and like, I've got you. And I also
Yes.
appreciated that you said, does it need something maybe outwardly, like call a therapist or get extra help or set a boundary? Because I hadn't actually thought of it that way before. And that could be one of our parts saying, hey, help a sister out here. help
Yes.
help these parts out here. But I find that the more I do this, the more then that these parts of me trust me and a relationship is built. And over time,
Yes.
just like with anybody,
Mm,
that they're like, oh my gosh, you're not just trying to fix us, because I'm not trying to fix anybody. And I think that that's something that can be stressed. And I've never heard that word from you at all, Jenna. Of course I haven't, but I think that there could be in our goal-oriented society, or our before and after, or our we got to get here. And especially we know this from the work we do, is we've just got to get to this point. And like you said, and I stress to our students, we're never there. This is an ongoing encounter.
Mhm.
But I feel the more we do this parts work, and maybe you have better language for it, but I feel like it's developing a trust and a relationship between myself, my true self,
Yes.
my imago Dei, and these other parts. And I
Mhm.
see it just like with any relationship, it takes time to build that trust.
That's
Mhm.
right.
And do you want to elaborate on that? Or no, I'm going to give Kathy an opportunity
Mhm.
too, because yeah.
It's interesting timing because in the Immanuel Institute, which we run, we're training practitioners and certifying practitioners in the Immanuel approach, and a lot of what we're doing is helping people build attachment with Jesus. And so last night was a training block that I did on what do you do when a part shows up in a session,
Mhm.
and and then they have some bonus content from another training about like your own parts. And this interview will probably be added to that module just to make sure they have access to it, because you're teaching it in much better verbiage than I would. But that whole issue of welcoming the part in and thanking it for the job that it's doing. I see this over and over and over again in sessions when there is a protector part that's coming up, getting curious with it, learning more about it, welcoming it, normalizing it, attuning with it, thanking it, and then being curious with it. And then also bringing Jesus into that mix and letting the part know they're welcome, because even just the attention given and the welcome and the gentleness of moving toward them and welcoming them toward you, there's something that's disarming about that because we're so used to pushing away. But no, I was just thinking about a tender part because I grew up alone in a big family where all of the other siblings were very close in age and older than me. So there was this dynamic of alone for me a lot as a kid. And so being able to listen to that, and how does that work itself out in as an adult, and what does it still need? Because I've been a bit of a loner, and even in relationships sometimes I feel like I have to exile myself to be a loner again, you know. So
Yes.
it's very interesting to have that
Mhm.
sense of moving toward. And I think that gentle curiosity with those parts is really helpful. And that's what
Yes.
we're training our students to do. That's what I was doing
Mhm.
last night, is we're not pushing away, we're not rebuking, and just the acknowledgement, like saying it out loud, the whatever part's showing up, it's like, really? You're not going to rebuke me?
That's right.
And we don't teach deliverance in our school. It's let's our first, not that there isn't a spirit realm, but our first thought should be, what pain is that part holding and how can we help it?
That's right.
So
That's right.
We just have like 5 minutes left with you. I wish I could, say give us an extra 6 hours. But Jenna, in the last 5 minutes, what what's most on your heart, just even currently with what's going on in the world, or the things that you're running across with clients, things you're witnessing that would kind of, I say, tie it up, or bring us to a gentle landing space that would beautifully conclude what we're talking about, perhaps.
Mhm. It's a beautiful and a wide aperture of an invitation.
Yeah, I know.
And
Go wherever, Jenna.
yes, the heartbeat of this way of experiencing ourselves and experiencing others is a unity in our shared humanity, our shared essence. The divine inside of me sees and honors the divine inside of you, regardless of how our parts, take us over on occasion. And without making any excuses, because there aren't any, and without removing any ownership from people whose parts are doing tremendous damage and harm and injustice, there is the way, has always been, and I believe always continues to be, the counterintuitive. And the counterintuitive, I believe in these days and times, and I speak to this, the actual how to do this in my book, Move Toward, and in my first book on IFS and Christianity called Altogether You, is rather than focusing our energy first and foremost outward at what the other person or group or organization is doing and how awful they are and how bad and how terrible, and by dehumanizing the other, we take what we call in IFS a U-turn. We U-turn our energy and we ask, what is coming up in me when I think about that person, that group, that organization? And then I offer that compassionate connection to my hatred, my anger, my judgment, my vitriol, my hopelessness. And I offer that first. And this is where we started, in my own system, before I can bring that discerning, wise leadership of who I truly am, that divine image inside of me, to wisely engage with what is happening in the world, which oftentimes is not safe, is toxic, is dangerous. It starts here inside of you and inside of me. And God is not over there on the other side of this big old pile of sin. He's actually right in here inside of you, inside of me. And it begins with what is coming up in me before I can wisely turn and observe my shared humanity with others, even when those others are doing really horrific things in some instances. And it is from that place that we can step into a space of true advocacy, of true boundary, of true action, without dehumanizing and vilifying the other. And it is that we must hang on to in these days, because when we dehumanize the other and we lose that connection that our self energy, that the Imago Dei always carries, that we are truly heading in a direction that is not the direction that will save us. We must maintain the connection with one another and our shared humanity with compassion and curiosity and wisdom.
Thank you. And that's really too allowing the other to be a mirror to us. And even as hard as that might be, and then, I mean, there's a whole other, we turn into a victim when we actually villainize other people too. So I love that we're turning toward. And share with us, Jenna, do you want people to reach out to you? Just like, do you need more clients? Because we could probably have several hundred knocking on your door, but how do people get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing, perhaps more teaching from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm no longer working directly with clients, mostly teaching and writing and speaking, but people are welcome to come find me at my website, movetoward.com. And I have a lot of free resources there. I've got links to free guided parts work and meditation, and just a variety of different offerings to help support people. And if folks are interested in how you combine this wild world of IFS with Christian spirituality, they might be interested in my book, Altogether You, which has been out for 5 years now. Hard to believe. And then I've got my newest book coming out in April. We have a pre-order link available, which is Move Toward, which is this 3-step shorthand for how to connect to the God image inside of us and be in relationship with our parts.
We'll put that link in the show notes. We have that, and your website we'll put in there as well. But thank you so much, Jenna. What a rich and beautiful time. Worth every minute of those months we've waited to meet you. So thank you so much.
December
thank you for the invitation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jenna. And if you guys have Insight Timer, get on that too, because she's on there with some offerings, and it's a meditation app. And thank you for getting your work wider than just the Christian circle, because this isn't just for one group. I mean, everybody on the earth needs this. And you do a beautiful job of bridging the gap for those, because I've heard your language, that Christians who may, or in faith communities who may be sort of reticent to look at this, and you're such a masterful teacher. So thank you for your offering, for what you share with the world, and helping healing just become softer and gentler than perhaps we've thought it to be. So we appreciate you so much, Jenna. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Appreciate your time, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed that interview, especially that meditative connection with our parts. I hope that you have experienced that and that you'll take Jenna up on her suggestion to do some journaling. And just because she said it gets fuzzy, that's true. It's really good for your brain to pull it through and maybe do some journaling and reflecting on what you experienced.
Yeah, thank you again for listening. Hope to see you in level 1, but we appreciate your sharing this podcast with others. And again, Merry Christmas, December 2025, as we
There
release
you
this.
go.
So, and if you're listening to this in June, Merry Christmas for next year. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening.
Blessings.
Thank you for joining us on the Face to Face podcast. For more resources and information, please visit face2facenetwork.org.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review. It helps others discover tools for deeper connection and lasting freedom. We will see you next time.